Welcome to Your Weekend News, you liberal scum. I'm the Bass Dex, and this is the Totally Happening Tomahawk edition. We were told by the trusted mainstream media that the only thing sleepy Dr. Ben Carson had to do with housing and urban development was that, well, he was urban. And it turns out Sleepy Doctor just uncovered over $500 billion in fraud within the Department of Housing and Urban Development. An independent auditor of the HUD's financials discovered the discrepancies after HUD reissued its financial statements in 2015 and 2016. The independent auditor seems to believe that at least some of the discrepancies were deliberate, in the billions of dollars that there is no documentation for whatsoever. Now, let's restate this just for some clarity. There was $516.4 billion, not million, billion with a B, in accounting discrepancies. $4.2 billion of this is completely unaccountable. That's because there's absolutely zero documentation as to where the money is gone. That $4.2 billion had not one single piece of documentation regarding where it was going, and it was basically given away with no accountability. Ben is woke, and the HUD is too damn stupid to cover their tracks. Maybe it's time to bring back the crucifixion. Or the Thunderdome. It absolutely fucking happened on Thursday evening when the U.S. fired 59 Tomahawk missiles at a Syrian government-controlled airfield. Thus far, 6 casualties have been reported, and a small amount of Syrian hardware was destroyed. The Russian government was alerted of the attack 1 to 2 hours before the strike had happened, and so was the Syrian military. While it showed that Trump would definitely get rowdy if lines were crossed, it was more the military equivalent of, wow, fucking nothing. The strike was in response to what the mainstream media has claimed was the Syrian government launched chemical weapons attack on the Syrian city of Idlib. It certainly looks like a false flag, since there was really no reason for Assad to do one of the things that would get the rest of the world involved. The attack on Idlib killed at least 70 people, but at least a child-murdering al-Nusra front was there to tend to the wounded, without the proper protective gear. Was it sarin gas? Or chlorine? Or mustard? I don't know, nobody seems to know, but if Assad did it, it sure as hell doesn't make any sense. A Russian warship has been reportedly heading towards the 2 U.S. destroyers that fired the Tomahawk missiles. How's that for your Russian narrative? You guys have been pushing it. Another 14 people were killed in a terrorist attack on a metro train in St. Petersburg this last week. The attacker's first name was Akbar's. I'm just going to call him Aladdin. What could possibly be the motive for this attack from a predominantly Muslim nation? What reason could a suicide bomber possibly even have for this atrocity? Well, 8 more men were detained in both Moscow and St. Petersburg. Many ISIS fighters have come from the hometown of the alleged attacker, which further confounds liberals. How could a person from an ISIS-friendly region possibly even consider, let alone perform, a suicide bombing? Hashtag glass landscape now. A truck of peace has killed more than 4 in Stockholm, Sweden. Big surprise, I know. It is believed to be an act of terror, but considering what we're talking about, Sweden, the ethnicity, nationality, name of the attacker, that will all be withheld from the public indefinitely. Because the Swedes take the same approach toward law enforcement as alcoholics do towards killing. You deny what's killing you, all up until it starts actually killing you. And then it's still not your fucking fault. Speaking of the Swedes, Swedish women, man, they must love rape. Well, because they keep voting for it. I mean, how many women need to get gang raped in the town square before you realize what the fucking problem is? The Swedes seem to think the answer is, well, all of them. Yep, rape everybody. I mean, there was a Swedish woman who was recently gang raped right outside of a bar, and she screamed for help. I mean, obviously, that's a sign that she wanted it, but the attackers initially report that there was a 4th man joined in the Swedish pastime of getting raped by migrants. She screamed, many people passed the alley, nobody intervened. I mean, who wants to get stabbed and possibly gang raped when defending the woman can get you thrown in jail anyway? The police are currently looking for people who have possibly seen the crime, because, yeah, in Sweden, you can be jailed for intervening. You will also be jailed if you hurt the peaceful rapists. You will also be jailed if you didn't stop the peaceful rapists. You know what? If you're just a national Swede, just go to jail. Save yourself the time. And perhaps it's time for the red-pilled Swedes to move somewhere else. I mean, your country has become a warning to every other nation on the planet. And the real question is, well, how many months is it going to take for Google to show the results of this attack? Because I still can't find it on there. The EU president, Donald Tusk, gave Spain veto power over whether Gibraltar would continue relations with the EU post-Brexit. Gibraltar has basically been a British colony, but its own sovereign state, for quite some time, though the Spaniards don't recognize it as such. The chief minister of Gibraltar, Fabian Picardo, had told Reuters that Tusk is, behaving like a cuckolded husband who is taking it out on the children. Is Gibraltar, dare I say, our rock? At the same time that the EU is shitting its drawers over Brexit, the EU is demanding that both Poland and Hungary take its migrants or GTFO. An unnamed diplomat from the EU told the UK newspaper The Times that unity has its price, and if Sweden and Germany are any indication, that price seems to be handing your country over to the rapists whose hobby include goat banging as well as pedophilia. The only upside to taking these migrants seems to be a sharp rise in Batman cosplay, and oh, are they good cosplays. Former National Security Advisor during the Obama administration, Susan Rice, had got some splaining to do. Now, it got revealed that earlier this week she had made dozens of requests to the NSA to unmask persons who were being spied on within the incoming Trump administration. Now, for some context, when an intelligence agency is spying on U.S. citizens, they are named U.S. Person 1 and U.S. Person 2, so on and so forth, in these reports. After the revelation that Evelyn Farkas and company were purposely and illegally leaking classified information to the media, this is starting to look like a RICO-level case of corruption amongst the Washington elites. Now, Rice has previously claimed that she knew nothing of the intelligence reports or of the unmasking names within these reports.
Let me leak the name of Mike Flynn.
I leaked nothing to nobody, and never have and never would.
Yet, sources say that even the NSA thought her dozens of unmasking requests were unethical and illegal. Now, how many fucking lines do you have to cross before an intelligence agency uses the word unethical or even cares about the legality of an action? Think about that for a minute. On April Fool's Day, George Takei announced that he was running for Congress. Publicly jacking off dudes wouldn't get you far in that race if you were actually serious, Sulu. Based Bannon has been removed from the National Security Council's Principals Committee. He was supposedly only there to keep an eye on Mike Flynn, but with Flynn out of the picture, there is no need for Bannon to remain on the council. Bannon stated that with Susan Rice gone from the NSC, H.R. McMaster has returned to the body its proper function. Bannon can still attend NSC meetings. OMG, you guys, how will the Nazis with no history of anti-Semitism ever recover? 8chan went down this last week after a few days. The most insane chan was back up, but the fourth most popular board left poll? Well, it was one of the last boards to be brought back online. Cripple Moot waited for as long as he possibly could before he had to bring this cancer back up. The most blue-pilled soda that you have ever shoved into your penis holster has released a new ad featuring Kendall Jenner. It was disgusting, completely unrealistic. The minorities weren't stealing or destroying anything at this peaceful protest that was depicted in the video. And the Muslim girl, she didn't even try to Allah Akbar anyone. She was too busy taking pictures for her oppression blog. Well, there was no male relative in sight, so she'll probably get acid thrown in her face later on. Now, at the end of the video, which was released on YouTube, Kendall Jenner hands a straight white male police officer a can of Pepsi. Unfortunately, none of the protesters were gassed or beaten. Black Lives Matter at the advertisement diminished their struggle against police brutality. And if the political terrorists that PLM actually gave two shits about Black lives, they would protest the 7 dead and 17 wounded in Chirac last weekend. But it seems that the only Robert cares about protecting the citizens from male black. Check your keys, Robert. Check your keys. Starvation enthusiasts, otherwise known as Antifa, interfered with a pro-Trump rally on April 2nd. This resulted in the arrest of 3 future Gulag inhabitants. They set off several of these colored smoke fireworks and then got manhandled by police repeatedly for just being a gathering of shitbags. Look at this. Vince McMahon, why don't you get some of these assholes to wrestle with the cops? I would pay to see that, Vince. Oh, man. Well, that's all the news that we had time to spurg about this week. Like us, subscribe, and all that other Israeli-sponsored crap. And we'll see you next week, just like the CIA does if you happen to own a Samsung TV. And with that, I'll leave you with the right man's happy thought of the week. Fucking bronies, man. Bronies? Well, they work for the fucking CIA. So if you take your phone with you when you go poop, they're listening to you poop. You might as well make it worth their while.